This is Barry Zalma on insurance. Today we're going to talk about why insurance fraud costs everyone and how a person who believed he wasn't committing fraud but was just trying to get himself a lower premium found himself at risk. Insurance fraud is not limited to fake claims. Most people don't present claims. The basic principle upon which insurance is based requires the many to pay small amounts so that the few can collect. If the risk is not spread fairly among the many, all suffer. Most businessmen would be shocked at a suggestion that they inflate a claim. They are honest in their business dealings. They honor their contracts and pay their bills. They seldom have insurance claims. And when they have a claim, they deal fairly and honorably with their insurer. Paying insurance premiums hurts. The marketplace is competitive. Prices vary from insurer to insurer. Skills vary from insurance broker to insurance broker. Eventually, businessmen learn how insurers set their premiums. They know that rates are applied to modifiers like the square footage of the structure, the payroll, or the gross receipts of the business. A businessman sitting with his insurance broker asks how he can get the lowest premium. He will often put his morality on hold when the broker suggests that he estimate a lower amount of gross earnings. The businessman will see nothing wrong with lopping 10,000 square feet off of his 50,000 square foot warehouse when applying for insurance. When called upon to list the payroll for his workers' compensation policy, he will be unconcerned when he tells his broker the payroll is $200,000 less than it actually is. It is just good business sense to reduce your workers' compensation premium. When his policy shows factory workers cost more to insure than clerical, he accidentally reports to his workers' compensation insurer that 10% of his employees are factory workers and 90% are clerical, although the opposite was true. What the businessman does not know, and what his broker does not tell him, is that knowingly misrepresenting a material fact, and there's nothing more material to an insurer than the basis upon which its premiums are calculated, is fraud. Insurance fraud in the acquisition of insurance bears both civil and, in some states, criminal penalties. An insurance broker who aids or abets an insured in obtaining lower premiums based on false information is equally guilty of fraud. The agent or broker who does not require the insured to sign an application will find, if the fraud is discovered, that the insured will deny knowledge of the application. He'll merely say, "I trusted my broker. My records were obvious in my office. All he had to do was ask, and I would have told him the truth." The broker faced with such a situation will find himself defending lawsuits brought by the insured and the insurer. In California, the insurance code now requires the following warning on all claims documents presented to insureds by insurers, and similar warnings are placed from various states on the same documents. Quote, "For your protection, California law requires the following to appear on this form. Any person who knowingly presents false or fraudulent claim for the payment of a loss is guilty of a crime and may be subject to fines and confinement in state prison." Close quote. I believe, to protect the insured, the broker, and the insurer, that the law should be modified to require the same warning on every application for insurance. A warning will not stop a person intent on committing fraud. It will, however, remind the honest businessman tempted to commit fraud to obtain a lower premium of the hazards of those actions. The ACORD form of application, a standard used by most American insurers, contains the following warning. Quote, "Any person who knowingly and with intent to defraud any insurance company or other person files an application for insurance or statement of claim containing any materially false information or conceals for the purpose of misleading information concerning any fact material thereto commits a fraudulent insurance act, which is a crime, and subjects the person to criminal and civil penalties." Close quote. Almost no one reads the warning on the application. Prudent insurance agents and brokers should point the warning out to the prospective insured before the application is signed to make certain that the warning was read and understood. The fact should be noted in the agent or broker's log. Every claims adjuster and investigator should review every word on the application and obtain the insured's answers asked as if the adjuster had no knowledge of the answers on the application form, or be criticized for not completing a thorough investigation. It is a crime to get a lower premium by lying, and in many states you can go to jail for it. It's also fraud to present a false claim. One of my fictionalized stories is called The Golden Tooth. A broken tooth is a tragedy to most people. To the waitress, a broken tooth was the beginning of a career. For 15 years she waited tables in restaurants varying from small coffee shops to exclusive French bistros. She saw almost weekly at least one customer trying to avoid paying for a meal. They would find flies in their soup or chunks of metal in their hamburger. Sometimes it was the fault of the restaurant, and sometimes it was just blatant fraud. Some people actually suffered injury because of inadequacies in the kitchen. One Sunday afternoon, sitting in front of her television, munching on a dish full of almonds, her right upper incisor snapped, and she found half a tooth in her hand. No blood, no pain, just half a tooth in her hand and a jagged piece in her mouth. If she had not been creative, if she had not been frustrated at seeing her employers successfully defrauded over the years, she would have made an appointment with her dentist and had the tooth kept. The waitress was, however, very creative. She saw the broken tooth as a start of a profit-making venture. She had Sunday evening off and no specific plan. The waitress made a reservation for one at a fine restaurant where she had once worked. She took with her to the restaurant, safely tucked in a compartment of her purse, the broken tooth and a small piece of steel that she cut from the top of a coffee can. She ordered a strip steak with baked potatoes and asparagus tips and ate her fill of the steak, potatoes, and vegetables. Before she finished, when no one in the restaurant was looking, she bit down hard on her inside lip. She drew a small amount of blood, put the piece of steel and broken tooth in her mouth, and uttered a cry of pain. She then spit into her hand the bloody piece of tooth and steel. She called the waiter over to her table and showed what was in her hand. She told him the metal must have been in the baked potatoes, and her tooth broke off when she bit into her last forkful of potatoes. The waiter, highly professional, apologized profusely and called his manager to her table. The manager offered to call for paramedics, that she of course refused. The break was clean. She needed only the services of a reconstructive dentist. The small amount of bleeding had already stopped. The manager offered to pay for her meal, brought her a glass of fine champagne, and asked her to help him fill out a claims form. He also asked to keep the piece of metal for his insurance company investigator. The waitress explained that she was in the business, understood that mistakes could be made, and was quite kind to the manager. She did not wish to cause any additional hardship to the restaurant, but would expect them to pay for the repair of her tooth. Accepting her graciousness, the manager offered to pay her medical expenses and not involve an insurance company. She agreed to visit her dentist the next day and provide him with an estimate of the cost of repair. The next day, she went to her dentist. The dentist told her that the break in her tooth was clean, and all he required to effect the repair was to place a cap over the tooth. The cost of the repair would be $650. She told the dentist she had no insurance, but that someone was willing to pay and she needed his estimate. He prepared a written estimate of the cost of repair of the tooth and provided it to the waitress. She took it to the restaurant manager, who immediately wrote her a check for $650, an additional $100 for her trouble and inconvenience. The waitress could not believe her good fortune and the ease at which she collected $750 and a free meal. A broken tooth generated more than a week's pay in less than an hour. The next day, the waitress had another fine meal at another fine restaurant, and the same events, with the date of the dentist's estimate changed by judicious photocopying. She again collected $650 for the repair and an additional $400 for her trouble and inconvenience. The waitress was not greedy. To her, the broken tooth was a supplement to her income. She knew there was no danger of prosecution. She limited her escapades to no more than twice a week. Her earnings averaged $1,500 a week tax-free. She quit her job, collected unemployment, and made more money each year from her broken tooth than she ever made in 15 years waiting tables. Sometimes the payments came direct from the restaurant. Mostly payment came from an insurance adjuster. The adjuster was usually happy to resolve a claim quickly of apparent liability. Even those adjusters who believed her claim was false and fraudulent had no evidence to prove it. Eventually, her name and broken tooth story began to appear in insurance company databases. When she presented a claim to a restaurant insured by the same company who had insured the last two restaurants to whom she had presented a claim, the adjuster refused to pay her. He reported to the fraud division of the insurance department in his state the fact that the waitress was apparently making fraudulent claims for the same tooth to various restaurants. The fraud division, noting that she was claiming only $650, concluded that the claim was too small to warrant the expenditure of investigative time. No one would investigate further or prosecute the waitress. Rather than take further chances, she moved to another city in another state, where she continued in her new profession. She's probably having a fine meal in your town tonight. This video was adapted from my book, Insurance Fraud Costs Everyone, which is a collection of fictionalized stories from real insurance fraud cases and is available from Amazon.com as both a Kindle book and a paperback. If you found this video to be interesting or useful to you and your clients or your colleagues, please pass it on. It's free. And please also subscribe to my YouTube channel, my Rumble channel, my blog, and my Substack publications so that you can be advised of future videos and future blog postings. Thank you for your attention.